Good evening, and welcome back to the weird and the wonderful with Strange Bones. That's me. And we are starting off as usual with a rather interesting, if complicated, particular culture, because as with some of the ones we have been doing most lately, this is a particularly old culture. So welcome, Creola. I hope you're interested in a curious and interesting look as we are moving around the world at different countries and cultures. The one for tonight is an interesting one, and our topic, of course, is witches still. What are they? Are they good? Are they bad? What can we say about them? Well, I'm going to remind everybody briefly what we have discovered thus far, which is to say that you get three varieties. You get those which are entirely self-contained, as it were, which in modern society we tend to refer to as psychics, those that use their own abilities to achieve contact with the supernatural and paranormal. You get the ones which work with spirits of varying kinds, sort of a middle range version, if you will. And then you get the theocentric version, which of course deal with deities, but of course in that regard, generally we tend to think of them as deities that are not part of the mainline religions, but as we have seen, that's not necessarily entirely true. But to start ourselves off, I am going to remind you all that on this channel we have but one rule, and our rule is that be polite. We have a great number of different countries and cultures that join in, so different beliefs, different religions, so we don't allow people to be rude or accusatory on the channel. And if you are, we will give you the royal boot. But other than that, we approve of agreement, disagreement, belief, disbelief, all the rest. Make sure you comment a great deal. Make sure that you like a great deal. We need it to promote the channel. Share, subscribe, join in, and support us as much as you can. We certainly need it. So welcome to you all. And tonight, our topic is Ethiopia. Now, as a country, it's quite possibly the oldest civilization in Africa. Which means, of course, it has a very rich and difficult history because there's a great deal that requires understanding. However, it is also an incredibly old country that, while it had a very brief moment of foreign rule for a short time that it didn't really take, they have never been colonized in its entire history, which says a great deal about it as a powerful and advanced culture in a great many ways. And religiously speaking, it is in fact one of the oldest. And for those of you who don't know, in terms of even Christianity, it predates Europe. So that should give you an idea about the kind of country we are dealing with. So we are going to have to dive in to quite a bit of background to understand what it believes and more. So it's a definitely interesting culture indeed, and one which I think we are all going to enjoy. So welcome to you all. Welcome to you, Nadia Nell. I hope you are well set for this. And with that all said, let us begin. I know normally I don't do a Sunday live, but given the joys of the internet, we were down for 2 solid days, so couldn't do our usual. So this is a special one to do a bit of a catch up to make sure we can keep going. So, starting ourselves off, before the official adoption of Christianity in the kingdom known as Aksum around 330 AD, ancient Ethiopia practiced a blend of pagan religions with a South Arabian and indigenous influence, but it, interestingly enough, also had quite a significant Jewish presence throughout the Beta Israel community. Now, the dominant religious system was polytheistic paganism, with the Aksumite rulers worshipping gods like Marem, Astar, and Beher, a system which changed under King Ezana with the introduction of Christianity. Now, these very old gods are going to be something that most of us have never even heard of, as you can imagine. Changes to its setup started a very long time ago. Early Ethiopian religions, including the kingdom of Demit, shared similarities with the paganism of southern Arabia. So there was a strong influence in that regard. However, that alone was not the only influence by any means. There were local spirits, nature deities, and of course a strong belief in the ancestors, which, as we know, has a great influence on a culture. Thank you very much to Lana for the likes. I do appreciate that greatly. Now, before Christianity, the Aksumites worshipped gods like Mahrem, as we said, the god of war, Astar, the god of the sun and the moon, and Beher, the god of the sea and the earth. Now, Ethiopia is a very interesting country because it is long more than it is wide. So quite a large country, but a sort of long, thin one, and has quite a strong coastline as well, yet it's an interesting sort of geographical region, what with its length ranging from very, very hot in the lower regions and across the equator, but it does get quite a bit of rain there. So a much more verdant country in the lower side, but as you get further north, it becomes very, very dry and desert. And that too, of course, has a number of interesting effects. Now, evidence of these pagan practices can be found in the remnants of ancient religious sites, including the famous Temple of the Moon, which I think we may need to know more about. And there are certain interesting deities such as Arwe, the serpent king, that was also worshipped, which is quite an interesting one in that regard. Now, with that, of course, you had the Beta Israel community, um, which was quite a strong Jewish presence that migrated down from Egypt centuries before Christianity, possibly as far back as the time of Moshe, or as we know him in the modern Bible, Moses. So there's been connections up and down for a long time now. In the reign of King Ezana of Aksum, Christianity became the official state religion, which, of course, again had a huge change uh, to the community and the culture. And we know that there are a number of famous and quite incredible churches in Ethiopia um, as a result of that. So, with that said, what can we say about witches? Well, we can say the following. In Ethiopia, the concept of witches almost always refers to people having been accused of Buddha. Now, Buddha is an uh, interesting thing because it connects to two concepts. The first is the evil eye, a supernatural power to cause harm, which is quite similar to that found, for example, in Greece and Italy. So this is by no means something that is unique to the country. The concept is seen in a number of different cultures, but it also connects to a rather interesting thing. Now, you're all familiar with the concept of werewolves, but in Africa we don't have wolves. What we have are hyenas, and they are, of course, connected very strongly with witchcraft. The other interesting thing is Debtera, which is the practice of illicit magic. Now, of course, it's very interesting to point out that by saying illicit magic, you are implying, of course, that there is licit magic, and that is indeed the case. But the illicit magic often involves religious knowledge used for divination and healing outside of the official church teachings. While different from the Western image of witches, these figures possess the power of curses, transform into hyenas, the Buddha, or cause misfortune, and are viewed with a mix of fear and caution within society. So, Buddha is by and large a kind of a curse, the evil eye, the ability to pass on badness via line of sight. What's very interesting is that it's often connected to specific castes and professions, which is quite unusual. The power of Buddha is said to allow the bearer to change into a hyena to attack unsuspecting victims, concealing their human identity. And the belief is quite widespread, but what makes it really interesting is that it's particularly attributed to groups such as the iron workers, your profession, and to the Beta Israel, the Ethiopian Jews. And it is often linked to envy or malevolent spirits, which is quite interesting as well. It's an unusual setup. Welcome to the Emperor's Son, my dear friend, sir. Are you well? I do hope you are in fine form this evening. I'm glad to see you back, and I hope you can stay with us for a while. I know you are a busy man, but very much welcome to you. For those of you who don't know, he is a long-standing friend of the channel. We are always glad to have him on. Now, the Debteras, in general, interestingly enough, much thanks for the heart there, sir. That is very kind of you. The Dipteras are actually Ethiopian Orthodox, which is quite unusual, ritual specialists with advanced religious education who also practice illicit magic. Now, while acting as singers and musicians in the church, they may also function as religious magical healers and fortune tellers outside the official religious sanctioned activities. Now, again, we see a very interesting thing in that music and singing are connected to witchcraft. And again we see how this sort of mindset is so prevalent in every culture around the world. The idea of song or speech being a method of invoking power, the whole idea of enchantment coming from a chant is absolutely prevalent. And it's an interesting thing that I think is quite unusual as an idea for most of us until you actually start to think about it and realize how logical it is. I mean, after all, the correct way to write things is, after all, called spelling. Same word. Interesting indeed. Now, some of their practitioners do things that are in contradiction to the official stance, such as the distribution of contraceptive herbs or performing magic for contraceptive functions, which go against the Ethiopian Orthodox Church's official stance. Well, yes. Thank you very much. I would love to hear more about that, Lana. That's a very interesting comment. Which country is York? If I may ask, if you don't wish to say anything, you're more than welcome not to. But I would be very interested in hearing which country you're referring to, because yes, this is a very much a thing, and people are warned about it. Yes, I am South African too. I will say that I was also raised to believe that these things should not be or are not allowed, but they absolutely do happen nevertheless, very much so. Now, they make a distinction between those with the power of Buddha and those that are Dipteras. So, Dipteras are kind of within Ethiopian Christianity, whereas Buddha are not. But both are considered to be witches and very much feared, and quite often respected, which shows that not everybody is exactly against. Now, of course, there is a social impact, as we have seen, and one of the key points when it comes to witches is to do with viewpoint. And I've said it before, and I must reiterate it, that how it is viewed from inside doesn't necessarily match with how it is viewed from the greater society. Even though those doing it may think that they are good and are doing things for good reasons, etc., etc., it does matter whether or not general society sees it that way. And of course, the conflict of the two often does lead to all kinds of issues such as ostracism, expulsion from communities, even worse, actual physical attack, and more dependent on how much the community is against it. So keep in mind that different viewpoints matter strongly. Now, unlike some other forms of witch, as is known, the juju practitioners, as it were, which is something which we are very familiar with in Africa, very often use physical articles such as protective amulets made from scrolls or boards inscribed with scriptures to provide magical protection. They use items, and when it comes to traditional styles of witchcraft, the older it is, the more they tend to seem to use items and things in that regard, which is very, very interesting. So I do think that Lana has made a very good point there. So let us talk more on Buddha. So the first is the fully outside the fold, as it were, form of witchcraft. Welcome to all of those of you who have just joined in. Glad to see you are there. Hope you are doing great. We've just had quite a list join us in, so I hope all of you are ready for an interesting look into Ethiopian witchcraft. And remember, like, share, subscribe, do all the good things to keep us going, if you will. Now, Buddha, or as it is sometimes referred to in Ethiopian, Ge'ez, and the Eritrean folk religion is the power of the evil eye and the ability to change specifically into a hyena. We don't, as I have said, we don't have werewolves in Africa. There are no wolves. We have our own version. And I find that actually, while different countries call it different things, a number of them turn up with pretty much the same belief. Buddha is a power held and wielded by those, especially among metal workers. It's present also in Sudan, Tanzania, and among the Berbers of Morocco. Interestingly enough, belief in the evil eye is still widespread in Ethiopia, and to this day, the Ethiopian Jews, the Beta Israel, are often characterized by others as possessing Buddha. So whether or not the actual people accused think they do, or are part of it, or anything like that, doesn't really matter from the point of view of all of the outsiders. The outsiders being the greater society, they will say they definitely do. And of course, that influences greatly how the society works. But here is where things get kind of weird, because the Ethiopian Jews might be characterized, and for centuries they have been particularly known as iron workers, as well as others. They strongly are said to have these powers, and in fact, the Amharic word for a manual worker, tabib, is also used to denote one with the evil eye. And as iron workers, they actually have a very, very important role in society, which makes it even more weird because they're needed, they're wanted, for their skills and for the importance that they play in society, yet at the same time, they are feared because of this powerful, evil talent that they have. So, Tabib is pretty much believed to be the same as being a witch, as we would call one. Now, the alleged prevalence among outsiders correlates with the traditional belief that the evil eye curses themselves are rooted in envy, and as such, those allegedly possessing the power of Buddha might do so because of malevolent spirits. One study specifies that they are believed to be empowered by an evil spirit, and indeed, it is described that the idea of magical creation underpins the perception of artisans in Ethiopia and indeed to a certain extent in the wider African context. In many cases, these skills have been acquired originally from an elemental source of evil via the paternal lineage, kind of like a Faustian pact, but a generational one. The power of the evil eye allows the bearer not only to change into a hyena and attack others while concealing their human identity, it is also the source of their knowledge um, of ironwork and such. And why do you say that, sir? Is history not what it is? Now, some Ethiopian and Eritrean Christians carry an amulet or talisman known as a kitab, or will specifically invoke God's name to ward off the ill effects of Buddha. A Debtera, who is either an unordained priest and or an educated layperson who practice traditional medicines and sometimes magic, creates these protective amulets or talismans for the people to use. Now, it's interesting that they point out that these Debteras might be unordained priests. Ordained Ethiopian Orthodox priests also continue to intervene and perform exorcisms on behalf of those believed to be afflicted by the demons of the Buddha. And such persons are brought to the church or a prayer meeting. In a modern case study, they found that Amsalu Galeta relates elements that are common to Ethiopian Christian exorcism, which include singing praises and victory songs, reading from the scripture, prayer, and confronting the spirit in the name of Jesus. Dialogue with the spirit is another important part of the exorcism ceremony, as it helps the counselor or exorcist to know how the spirit was operating in the life of the demoniac. The signs and events mentioned by the spirit are affirmed by the victim after deliverance. So it's quite an involved process in that regard, and very much an interesting one. The exorcism, however, and this is in fact a true thing of all exorcisms, interestingly enough, though you might think otherwise, exorcism is not always successful. And Geleta notes another instance in one of his writings in which the usual methods were unsuccessful and the demons left the subject only at a much later time. In any event, in all cases, the spirit is commanded in no other name than that of Jesus, which perhaps is quite important. Now, this may be of some importance in that these superstitions, in many ways, are seen to be there in order to uphold the caste system by and large. That's sort of what it does, that people keep to their social castes out of fear. So people don't interact more than outside of work. They don't marry into, etc., with the Ethiopian Jews or with the artisan and manual labor castes, you stick to your own caste. Manual laborers are considered to be lower by the aristocratic families who, like tribal lords, spiritualists, and scholars, are considered to be part of the higher caste. Within this social structure, manual laborers socializing with higher castes is seen as sinful and impure, and the lower caste is generally referred to as being envious and malevolent and selfish, and therefore carriers of evil. And it is for this reason that the kitab jewelry, beads, and amulets are worn to protect you from the uh, lower castes in this regard, which is quite an interesting um, reality of how beliefs and superstitions certainly do affect society and the way it goes. Um, there was an encounter that was recorded in the 1830s when a Christian priest accused some members of the Beta Israel of being Buddhas, and they rejected the charge. They said, "We are not Buddhas. If Buddhas exist, you are obliged to believe that they can do nothing contrary to the will of God. Consequently, they cannot harm those who have true faith in God. Thus, your groundless fear of Buddhas only proves your total want of faith in the God of Israel." Another pretty harsh response, but a clever one. But the idea of magical creation underpins the perception of artisans in Ethiopia in this regard. So this keeps people in their place in that way. Now, in Ethiopia, it's generally agreed that there are 12 harmful superstition-related practices, such as female genital mutilation, polygamy, ovulotomy, I have no idea, milk teeth extraction, forced marriage, food prohibition, work restriction, abdominal massaging of pregnant women, excessive feasting, unnecessary incision, and widow inheritance. It's very interesting that these are lumped together and what they are, and it shows how there is a different view on things from what we are generally used to. Among the Abale Oromos, fungo is the belief that a dowsing rope will act as the object of divination, and it was observed during the Ethiopian Civil War when parents went to a diviner to find their children who had been displaced in the war. So there are a whole lot of practices that are still around that are part of culture, whether or not they might claim to fit to one modern type religion. The old ways never quite leave, and there are a number of little things that show up, shall we say, which includes, for example, the common practice of slaughtering a goat before the birth of a baby, which might partly have to do with Ethiopia's relatively high infant mortality rate. They want to cover their bases to keep their children safe, quite understandably. There is a belief that if a spotted hyena scratches a house, the resident will become a victim to a future war. That's an interesting one right there. A hyena screaming is an omen of death. Two hyenas screaming signify children would die. 5 to 6 a woman, and 7 a man. Although it's unclear about what will happen, the following quote reflects the general superstition about hyenas. When bad news is coming, he says, the hyenas cry. And pretty much, especially among the Harari people, this is absolute certain knowledge, which is quite interesting. Among the Omotic language speaking community, Mingi is a kind of superstition that asserts that children born with physical anomalies, including the top teeth coming in before the bottom teeth, are considered to be cursed. And very often these children would be unalived through drowning, suffocation, strangulation, or abandonment in the forest. And even in 2012, it still was going on. And in July of 2012, the Bari people officially banned the practice of infanticide, but the belief's still there, which is kind of frightening. Now, in this, there is a great belief in Za. And what are Za? Well, let us go on to examine Za. In the culture that are found around the Horn of Africa, including Ethiopia and parts of the Middle East, Za, which is an Arabic word, in Ethiopia, Ge'ez, it's the term for a demon or spirit assumed to possess individuals, mostly women. That seems to be a common thing. Have you not noted? Welcome, welcome, welcome. Endless Thoughts, my darling sweet. It is wonderful to have you back on the live. Sorry, by the way, that I missed the last couple of days. As I said at the beginning of the live, unfortunately, we had no internet in our entire area at all. So I wasn't able to do my usual. So my unusual Sunday is here specifically to do a bit of catch up. So Za are spirits, dependent on the current religious flavor. They are either spirits or demons, and the spirits are known to cause both discomfort and illness. Much thanks for those likes, my dear. They can possess an individual, and sometimes this possession is lifelong. And the so-called Za ritual or the Za cult is the practice of reconciling the possessing spirit and the possessed individual. Once possessed, you are basically always possessed, and the rituals associated with it are a form of adorcism. Adorcism is a term coined for the practice to placate or accommodate spiritual entities within a possessed person or place. Unlike exorcism, the relationship with the entities is potentially positive, and it's sometimes used as an initiation into a spirit cult. But basically, the short answer would be, given that it is felt that the possession is permanent, instead of using an exorcism, which is designed to get the spirit out, they're basically making it so that you can live with it, at least. So it isn't an exorcism, right? And it may even involve bringing in a spirit. And this is found in Maghreb's Hamadsha, it's found in the Hausa animism, and in a number of other African traditional religions, including, of course, as we have seen before, that of voodoo. Za is also a form of predominantly women's thing, if you will, and they involve food, musical performance, gatherings, and ecstatic dancing lasting between 3 and 7 nights. So, similar in a way to how things work in voodoo, it also works this way with the Za, and they use specialized instruments as well, which go along with this. The tanbura, which is a kind of six-string bowled lyre, which is generally used at the gathering. The manjur, a leather belt sewn with many goat hooves as a kind of rattle, and various percussion instruments. And we know that in many, many, many cultures, percussion instruments are absolutely the top choice for ritual type music. So there are certain variations into how the belief works going around, and there is an absolute hierarchy to the spirits of Za. What the individual spirits have different hierarchies, what the type of possession would be for what type of person, and what kind of troubles these things can in fact inflict as well. Where does this all come from? Well, it's hard to say because it's very old, and there's a possibility that these ideas actually came from Persia. But that's hard to really tell. We know that Tsar rituals have been practiced for a very, very long time, and they've been recorded because, again, remember that Ethiopia is a culture that goes back a very, very long way, which means, of course, they have been recording things for centuries. So we know it's old at the very least. Some have said that it may have links to West Africa, but this doesn't seem likely at all. It seems definitely to come from the north, the Arabic roots as well. And they wonder if that Za doesn't actually come from the root word in Arabic meaning to visit, because, of course, the possessing spirit, which is not always considered to be bad, visits the victim. So there's a definite hint to that possibility. We know that the Jews have been in Ethiopia for centuries and centuries as well, though there might be, in fact, a Hebrew origin to the word, meaning to turn aside or go away, one who distances or removes himself, which seems to imply that it is a term referring to those who have deviated from the official views and religions, as it were, and have gone off with other spirits. It could also have come from the pagan religions of Kush, which is thought to be, though not entirely certain to be fair, what is the current region of Sudan. We're not really certain, to be honest with you in that regard. So Za is an interesting one, and it absolutely would fall into the terms of a pagan religion, which is viewed, at least, as being kind of witchcrafty. So we know that there are very many varieties. So you've got different types of Za, and in Ethiopia there are three, which scholars at least refer to as conversion Za, the most common, involving women and trance. It's mostly a women's thing, and it's termed as such after the conversion hysterical reaction, not after religious conversion, but the fact that they are possessed. Ceremonies often occur in conjunction with holidays. Seer Za is less common and emphasizes fortune telling. Unlike the other two, it's predominantly male. Its events occur regularly throughout the year. Group therapy Tsar, and you could tell these are outsider scholars referring to these things because uh, the locals do not speak of them in these terms, but group therapy Tsar is the least common, which have a leader, a Tsar doctor, or a Balazar, um, helping a group of others who are possessed. It occurs regularly but may have special holiday events. Different regions tend to generally favor one variety or another, but in plenty of cases, a region's Tsar will have elements from more than one type. This is in contrast to the Tsar in Somalia, which has a lot of different varieties, such as Mingis, Burane, Shadrax, Wadaduru, and Numbi. So they talk about different varieties in different areas. In Sudan, the distinction is made and emphasized by practitioners, interestingly, between Tsar Bori, practiced widely in northern Sudan by freeborn women, and the comparatively more obscure Tsar Tumbura, practiced by the descendants of slaves from south and western Sudan and the Nubia Hills in Khartoum, in poor neighborhoods and shanty towns. Originally, Tumbura had a military association of all things, but in recent times, Tumbura practitioners from the Nuba Hills have selectively borrowed from Bori practices as social circumstances for Tumbura practices have changed. The practices are similar in that they use drums, Islamic praise chants for religious figures such as Muhammad, and the way possession is acted out in trance is similar. So, but they all ultimately, like voodoo, do connect back quite particularly um, to possession in that regard, which is quite important. So there is one of the more interesting forms of uh, witchcraft, as it were, that occurs in Ethiopia. Um, in many cases, and here is something else that links back to something which came up uh, in our examination of ghosts, um, which is quite important perhaps. Tsar spirits are often identified with winds and very often with the jinn. Yes, the jinn are still here. They say that Tsar spirits may be inherited, whereby a spirit afflicting an older close relative will go on to afflict their child or other younger relative. The plural of Tsar is Zayan, and adherents may use the plural to talk about 7 or more societies of spirits existing in a parallel world. These societies generally correspond to ethnic groups and or societies other than that of the given Tsar group. Philosophical pondering on the Tsar and the nature of Tsar is not very common, though. They are just seen as spirits, part of a lived and accepted reality. Now, of course, this does also connect up, because after all, we want to start to get common ground in these things. It links to Egypt. And in Egypt, there are said to be 66 Tsar spirits. However, the spirits named vary dependent on which ritual leader one speaks to, and none will name all 66. They are loosely grouped into families, and the spirits are paired together as husband and wife, brother or sister, or in the Carian Upper Egyptian Tsar practice, all the spirits of brother or sister, and also father or daughter. They are also grouped into other overlapping pantheons, such as the kings of the earth, the seas, the heavens, the sultans of the red, yellow, and green jinn, and the guards of the thresholds. The spirits are in a hierarchy. At the top is Mama, an Ethiopian spirit whose name does not mean mother. And the songs begin for this spirit. All the songs, in fact, begin for this spirit. The spirits might be called Wilad Mama, or the sons of Mama. Now, do not for a moment think that Mama refers to a mother. Now, they're also thought of as spirit doubles, like the Akran, in essence. We all have a Zar, only some people don't know it. Some explicitly identify the Zar spirit and the Karin, commonly regarded as a kind of jinn, as being the same. The Akran are facsimiles of their human counterpart, and in Upper Egypt are understood to be of the same race, sex, and temperament of the human. When the human is sick, the Karin is sick. When the human dies, the Karin dies. Though interestingly, tales exist of the Karin's children dying and the spirit trying to take her human counterpart's children by killing them. In some parts of Egypt, this is explained by stating that the dead child goes to its mother, Karina. However, Zar spirits of either sex may possess a person. Urabe is a male spirit, but he frequently possesses women. Further, if a person is possessed by one spirit, they are considered to be possessed by the other spirit that they are paired with, even if they do not display symptoms of possession of the other spirit. Sometimes a person of one sex, while a spirit of the opposite sex explicitly acts through them and is referred to by the spirit's name and sex. For example, a record exists of a woman possessed by the Sheikh Mohammed. Thank you, Cupid. That was very, very kind of you. Much, much appreciated right there. And would be referred to as such when the Sheikh came forward. Some also report that the gender or sex of the spirit may be indeterminate, making them some kind of hermaphrodites. In addition to the terms Zar and Jinn, they may also be referred to as Arafit, which is a ghost, or a Khri, a wind, Dastur, spirit, or Asyad, master, or with the title Sheikh or Shikha. The possessed person is called Me'afrat, or Maryu, or Menzer. The primary possessing spirit could be called the spirit of her head, or the master of her head. This spirit is identified in the girding ceremony, and its identification is necessary if one is to become a Zar leader. Now, the Zar spirits are said to be attracted to deserted spaces, dark areas, doorways, staircases, around water sources, cemeteries, toilets, and garbage dumps, which is pretty much the same kind of descriptions that we have for where it is said the jinn like to lurk. First experiences of possession often occur in one's teen years in a bathroom. Zar spirits are not seen as evil, though they can be vengeful over trivial offenses, such as accidentally stepping on an invisible Zar spirit often provokes the spirit to possess someone to cause illness or misfortune. Another thing we have found very much in reference to the jinn, and we've seen that in a number of places. Now, in other instances, possession may occur when a person is frightened suddenly. Those who are vain, stressed, sorrowful, or grieving may also be susceptible. Possessed person in Egypt is usually said to be being worn by the spirit like a piece of clothing. However, the Hausa influence is evident in the Tsar of the Grand Lady, a series of rites specific to menopause where the Tsar leader who hosts the titular spirit or spirit in the associated pantheon is called a horse, a kodya. Instead creating a riding metaphor, which is, of course, the one that we see in voodoo. The Tsar of the Grand Lady is unique in Egypt, as it is a qualified Kodia who hosts the spirits during the ritual instead of the person the spirit is afflicting. In Upper Egypt, the riding metaphor is also used for possession more generally, though it may refer to the possession or the possessed as camels rather than horses, which makes sense. That's very, very kind of you, and absolutely, I'm sure it's true. But please understand that on our live, not everybody is Christian. So please do not try to convert people or push your views on others. There are a lot of different countries and cultures that listen on this channel, and we respect all of them as we do respect your own belief. So thank you for your comment, but not here. So now we see that in these varying cases, you can have different viewpoints of what might the case be. Every spirit, of course, is associated with specific songs, colors, sacrificial animals, and each spirit possessing a person must be placated in addition to songs and animals, usually of a specific color or pattern. They may demand specific incense, clothes, jewelry, candles. There you go, endless thoughts. Absolutely, the candles are back. Candles are very, very popular, it seems. Christian spirits often call for the consumption of alcohol, such as whiskey, which is quite interesting in that regard. Different spirits are associated with different afflictions, and Ethiopian spirits being associated with aggression or nervousness. In the early 20th century in Upper Egypt, different songs were needed, but only one sacrificial animal was necessary. But in modern Cairo, it seems each spirit gets its own sacrifice along with its own songs. And if a song displeases a Tsar spirit, the possessed person may not be able to remain in the room where it's being played. Huge thanks for the likes there and for the followings. I appreciate that very greatly indeed. Now, one of the things which was brought up by Endless Thoughts in the discussion on Santeria was how many candles were used and how important it was. And it seems that we found exactly the same thing here. Something which we've noted is very much in common with Christianity. Candles matter in connecting to the spiritual things, it seems. I wonder why, and if light is the basic theme, or if fire is the point. We shall have to find out as we progress around the world. Once a spirit is placated, however, they may aid the possessed person in divination and provide medical aid and more, which makes them useful. So different spirits rise and fall, and they are connected to different bands' specializations in different songs. And if a band ceases to exist, many of the spirits they played for will as well, with the most popular spirits and their songs being adopted into other bands. So we've got a music culture that is directly connected to the spirits themselves. And it used to be a band would be associated with a single pantheon, but this trend is fading, and bands are adopting spirits that cross the boundaries. So the Afnu, a band made up of black Egyptian women of slave descent, no longer exist. But many of its spirits, the Harbia or Liwa pantheon, are invoked by the Tamburu bands in the Grand Ladies pantheon. Yarwa Bay and Rakush belong to the Harbia pantheon. So it seems that we may even have a particular music scene connected specifically to spirits in this regard. Huge thanks to End of Thought for the Go Popular. That is very, very kind of you. I do appreciate greatly. So, different places have different spirits. So in Egypt, a very popular one is Yarwa Bey and his daughter Rakusha. Yara is considered to be a handsome, dark-skinned playboy spirit, said to be an Ottoman officer who wears a red tarbouch and sash and possesses young women, and is said to make her suitors think she is ugly or to cause marital issues and even homosexuality. He will prevent marriage until he is placated, but he loves to smoke, loves perfume, and animal sacrifices must be red. Jewelry used to placate him is usually rings set with rubies, or their glass or plastic imitations, as very few people can afford rubies. That's a very interesting question, and Jacqueline, you've raised a good point. Now, in accordance with what we have seen, the answer would actually probably be yes. If you went to the specific and correct one, or if it came to you, I suppose, and you placated it in the proper manner and formed the correct form of relationship with it, yes, according to Azar, that is exactly what will happen. How well it works, of course, I don't know, but we know that there are certain ceremonies where they will bring the spirit into the person in order to give them both healing and happiness and peace. And that is very important to them. So, yes, it appears that the answer is absolutely the case. Now, as we know, we've been saying that Yarawa Bey likes his red things. Apparently, he also likes whiskey and beer, but certain of the religions in these different areas prohibit alcohol, and so soft drinks are used instead, though some will spill a bit of beer on the head of the person he possesses, not drink it, of course. What are we talking about? Well, we have been looking around the world at witches in different countries and cultures to see what we can see and what we might find out, and for curiosity and more. The channel is about supernatural and paranormal, but tonight's specifically about Ethiopian witchcraft, and we spilled a little into Egypt because of the way the same beliefs are there as well. And in fact, this particular spirit, Yarwa Bey, comes from the Sudan tradition, though it is popular in Egypt. Some have connected them with other places as well, but different areas, different views, and of course, different ways that things work. So, the diviners in Egypt like to use cards for their divination, whereas other places use coffee cups, prayer beads, or dream interpretations. So you get variations dependent on which specific cultural group practices this form of zar. Uh, we also find other instances where spirits come from other places. So, even though we are talking Ethiopia and Egypt, there is a spirit, Gado, which is Nigerian. Um, and the weird part with Zar, whether it's good or bad, I don't know, is that bathrooms are particularly considered to be portals between the human and spirit world. And this is interesting because we found that in many Asian and Indian cultures, bathrooms are places where hauntings occur. So, can we say then that these are spirits are in other countries, but they're just seen differently as ghosts or such? We know for a fact in Japan, many of the weird cryptid style monstery ghost things that pop up do so in or around bathrooms. And that's common in a number of places. I can indeed. Not that button. We want to go to tools. Where did the tools go? Those are scenes. Where are tools? They've changed where the tools go. That's irritating. Hold on a second. There you go. One invite sent. So, absolutely, we've got a number of possibilities here. Welcome, Jacqueline. How are
Hello,
you?
can you hear me okay?
I can indeed hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much for your lovely video, like your group that you've posted. I appreciate it so much.
Thank you. I'm glad you're enjoying it.
Yeah, no, I'm really interested. I was speaking to my boyfriend on the week just yesterday. We were having a big conversation about religion and all that. You
Okay.
know, the thing of me, I was brought up as a Christian. So
Yes, many
I
of
went
us
through,
were.
yeah, I went through catechism. I was baptized, you know, the whole thing. And still, I do believe I am a Christian. I do. And I'm
Of
still a
course,
Christian.
of course.
But I'm not closed, and my brain is not closed to whatever else is,
Well,
happening in this world.
I think this is in many ways the reasons why I started doing this live is because that I was also brought up Christian, absolutely. Um, but there are so many things that I had questions about that there are never answers given. We tend to get told, no, 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 you just do as you're told and stick in your lane type
Yeah,
thing. And
that's true.
there's so many cultures around the world with interesting answers to things. I'm not saying
Exactly.
I believe them,
No, no, I know exactly what you're saying. They
but
answer questions that we have that doesn't necessarily get answered in our own religions.
absolutely, and certain commonalities as well. As I was just saying, the fact that in many countries, bathrooms are considered to be places where spirits come through, and right here in the
Oh.
Tsar beliefs, um, bathrooms are considered to be a portal.
But the funny thing is that you're bringing this up now. What caught my interest in your conversation briefly this evening when I came across you, earlier this afternoon they were talking about Pinky Pinky. Do you know Pinky Pinky? It's the South African folklore kind of
Yes, I have
yes,
heard of it.
and they were talking. The story just came. I don't know where it came from, but it just popped up, and I was like, "Hey, Pinky Pinky." And we were talking about Pinky Pinky, the girl. What happens is the child, or mostly girls, teenage girls, they go into the bathrooms, in schools and whatever, and this Pinky Pinky creature will say, like start talking to them, and if they are wearing pink or something, it will catch them, grasp them, or so when you bring up bathrooms, all that, I'm starting to think of this Pinky
Well,
Pinky story that I was listening to.
I don't know if it came here via and via, but in Japan,
Yeah.
they've also got a story like that, almost identical, though their one seems to be either red or blue, a
Okay.
color difference, but the same basic thing, very much a female spirit, usually in female bathrooms as well,
Okay.
that does exactly the same kind of thing. Now, we've also, this came up because she's considered kind of a ghost, but a vengeful ghost in Japan.
Yeah.
You
Oh yeah.
also get specifically certain ghosts or spirits in India that hang around bathrooms. You also
Yeah.
get them in parts of the Slavic states, so Romania, Georgia, and those kind of places. So cultures that are very far apart, that are very different, nevertheless with the same
Mm.
story. Now, here in Ethiopia, again, a completely separate and different culture, and you start asking,
Oh yeah.
why are there commonalities?
Because here in South Africa, is where I stay. Pinky, and Tokoloshi, and things like that are very common, you know.
Absolutely, yes.
The
I'm
Pinky
South
Pinky
African
thing
as
they were
well.
talking about was,
But
are
now
you okay? They
that's
said
exactly it.
Pinky, and Tokoloshi had
Now,
similar kind of like when people the creatures, the actual person, look very similar, but the color difference and all that. So,
well, around the world you will find
but then,
different colors, but the same basic
uh,
story. So the color seems to be kind of incidental. But the story and the
yeah,
description of what they do is the same in cultures that
I
really
mean,
are totally different.
yeah, they were saying that like the conversation that I wasn't listening to about the Pinky Pinky thing was the reason that like folklore or whatever it was brought up because they were trying to teach teenage girls to be more cautious about going to public bathrooms and things like that by themselves or stuff like that. Like it's like a urban legend kind of thing.
Well, yes and no.
But
So I would give you two sides to that argument because they've said exactly the same thing in all the other cultures where the same story comes up, that it's a way to warn young girls, be careful, don't go alone to a public
uh,
bathroom, which is fair. But how
yeah,
is it that cultures that are so radically different have come up with exactly the same story?
yeah, exactly. But I agree with you 100%. That's the thing. It's like I don't know. I must sound very confusing to you. I'm just interested to hear your opinion on yours because I'm a big, like I'm not gonna lie, I'm a big crime horror buff. I love anything that's like demon possession movies. I watch all these things and I'm like, totally. But
Uh,
then again, I also know myself as a person. I'm very okay. I was raised as a very strict Christian. I went through Bible study, but then again, I'm very susceptible because I am
well,
bipolar. I'm borderline schizophrenic. I have a lot of
it
things that
it may interest you
yeah
to note that quite a lot of these things that most people will say, well, that's got nothing to do with Christianity, are in fact mentioned in the
yeah
Bible.
yeah.
It is
That's true though.
part,
That's what is
it is part of Christianity. It's been there ever since.
yeah.
I had an
That is
interesting discussion when we did the whole series on curses, and somebody came on and said, you shouldn't talk about those things, they're not Christian. And I actually know in the Bible, they talk about personal curses, they talk about curses from God, and there are specific parts in the official Christian Bible where God Himself
Discusses.
uses them. So, you know,
Yeah.
to not talk about them and stuff is in fact entirely
Yeah.
incorrect.
That's the thing with Christianity. I get this part now. Me, as our family, like, right, my cousin, he studied to become a preacher, like a, you know, he went and he studied. He went to work as a oh, what do you call it? A missionary,
Yes, yes.
whatever. Anyway, he came back after many years, and then next month he didn't want to work as a missionary anymore. All family were kind of concerned. We didn't understand what happened. Or he eventually came and he said that he's gay. You know, he's
Okay.
and he thought the whole family was gonna resign him as a person and think it was bad. And but now he's saying, you know, you can be gay and be Christian at
I
the
know
same
a
time.
great many gay Christians.
Yeah.
So
No, I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm not
no, no,
like, please don't.
I don't think that, but I understand where you're coming from because there is
But
a
no,
view many have.
yeah, there's very few. But like the thing is, with my family specific, he's try. It's built a terrible barrier between him and his mom, especially, and because of the type of family we are. Me, I don't judge. I mean, I don't judge. But
It's
for him, I can see where his pain is coming from now. He's like suffering because he started to become a preacher. He worked as a missionary. This was his life. This was the thing. Now he's struggling as a person to,
fully understand. I fully understand that.
you know,
Coincidentally, I was a monk for 9 years in the Catholic Church. I worked missions. I was trained as a priest, and I also left.
yeah. It's a very
So,
difficult. Yeah, it's a difficult thing to deal with, and I can see his struggles. He doesn't speak very much to any of us anymore. He posts on Facebook often,
of course.
and I don't know. Sorry, I don't know what to. I'm just talking randomly. I'm just like,
Well,
anyways,
I can tell you that when it comes to things, I'm always suspicious of anybody who says they're Christian, but
yeah.
immediately judges because before all the other instructions ever received
Yeah,
in the
don't judge.
Bible and from Jesus was don't judge.
Yeah. Exactly.
So, you know, before anything else, we are told don't judge.
Yeah,
Yet it
exactly.
seems to be never taught and is forgotten very quickly.
You see, the
So,
thing with me, I've got quite an interesting family blend here, because now my other cousin, she was a she, and now she became a he. So it's like that also kind of, she was also part of the big Christian family kind of thing. It became quite a difficult.
I can
Her
imagine it
my fa
would.
Yeah, my family discarded her pretty quickly after she decided his changes, and that was like,
Well, at the end of the day, I think that in terms of these things, the important thing is to remain who you are.
yeah.
Um,
Thing is, how
whatever outward,
open-minded.
yeah,
The problem is
absolutely.
how open-minded is too open-minded. That's the thing what I was saying.
Um,
There
that's a
must
good
be
question, but
there must be a limit to something. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying I'm judging anyone, but I'm saying there must be a limit. There must be some sort of a cosmic limit to what is wrong and what is right in this world.
there's
And
a
that's
there's a difference to my mind, and this is again is partly why I do this channel. There is a difference
right.
between being open-minded and your view on morality.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
that's
for
true.
example, I have a great deal of respect for many of my Hindu friends, but
Yeah,
they know very well I don't believe in Hinduism. But I
yeah,
can respect them. I can be
Of course.
open-minded and accept them for what they believe, even if I
Yeah.
personally do not believe that.
Yeah.
My argument there is that it's the same with morality. I can follow and choose a specific morality and keep to it while still being
Yeah.
open minded.
Yeah. And respecting
Exactly.
their
And with that, the only law in terms of morality that I would stick to or insist on
yeah.
is a set of laws which really and truly, if you look at it, will turn up in every society. It's kind of what I would call fundamentally understood as moral, not because we're taught it, but because we know it in ourselves. So,
Yeah. In your
not
subconscious as
don't
well.
go around randomly killing people. We know we shouldn't.
Exactly.
Okay, it's
Yeah.
not a religious thing, really. It's
Just something
you're,
as a person.
yeah, um, being nice to other people is straight up there. Don't steal, don't commit
Yeah.
adultery. Though that
Exactly.
treat people well is universal. So as long as you don't go around committing what we can refer to as crimes, then
Yeah.
fine. If you want to wear a funny hat, wear it away. Good for you. It doesn't harm me.
Yeah.
Therefore, I should not worry about it.
No, you shouldn't worry about it. But if somebody's doing something to a child, for instance,
But now
abusing
that's
a
a
child,
fundamental. We know
yeah,
automatically in our
yeah,
own selves.
you're not gonna stand aside and say, "Hey, that's
Yeah.
fine."
Any person from any culture, no matter how far out, weird, isolated, or primitive, knows that being cruel to little children is bad. We know
Yeah,
that,
yeah,
So that kind of morality can exist. Now, if you then turn around and say, yes, but as well, in my religion, I shouldn't eat beetroots, fine. That doesn't mean I can't, and it doesn't mean that you're not eating them is going
yeah.
to
You're not allowed
impact on
to.
my life. It won't
Yeah,
harm me if you choose not to, if
yeah,
that
that's
makes
very
sense. Yeah.
true.
So,
No, no,
think,
what you're saying is totally like sense.
and that's the point. The problem comes in only when somebody comes to me and says, but I believe you should never eat a beetroot, therefore you're not allowed to.
Because they think that you should follow their
And
business.
that's the problem.
Yeah, no, I understand that completely.
So, yeah,
Yeah, this was the conversation we were having yesterday.
and there it
Yeah.
is.
But
So,
then again, he was not very happy with my answer to baptism. That I was didn't like that
lots of
because
people don't.
I said to him, I mean, I was as a baby baptized,
Okay.
and to me that was fine. That's me. That's fine. I went to catechism. But then my sister on the other side, she went to another church and they said that you have to get baptized as an adult to be whatever, whatever.
Okay.
There was no, yeah. And then my boyfriend was telling me, no, he thinks it's a big show. People just want to have their babies baptized because it's a show and they want to show something off to people. It was like a whole thing.
Well,
And I didn't,
there was a case actually that came up the other day in America where the guy was suing somebody because he said, no, he was suing his parents because he said that you baptized me when I was a little baby. I didn't agree to it.
I didn't give consent.
No.
Yeah.
Therefore, you inflicted your beliefs onto me without my permission.
Yeah, but that's true though as well. Yeah, I can understand what you're saying there.
Well, I
This is
suppose
the
it
thing.
depends.
What
Now,
makes it so strange because with Christianity, we think there's one Christianity, nothing else. But there's these all kinds of different. Every church has a different way
Absolutely.
of practicing. This was
Absolutely.
my problem with Christianity. I am a Christian. Yes, I believe in God. I pray. I, you know,
But which
but
one? That's the
yeah,
problem right there. How do you know? Um,
it's very tricky. It's very tricky.
I
That's
remember years ago there was it was a very irreligious comedy show that I saw, and the comedian in question, I'm not going to say who it
yeah, no,
was doing a sort of a spoof on. Uh, he was dressed as the devil, and he was bringing people into hell.
uh,
And he said one of the things he says was, "Ah, all the Christians have arrived. Sorry, bad news for you. The Jews were right." And I thought to myself, actually, he's made an interesting point.
mm,
Because when it comes to religion, the real truth is it's all belief, which means we don't know.
exactly.
So
But that's the thing. Me and Jeffrey were just discussing yesterday.
there
He said
you
to me
are.
straight. He told me it's about faith and something that you cannot prove, and
And
all of
that's
us
it.
hold on to, and that's the need to hold on to something. You know,
Well, that's
if you,
fine. But then,
yeah,
in all fairness, while I think that having faith is a great thing and a good thing and all the rest of it,
yeah,
just remember that the faith that is so important to you, I respect you have, but it doesn't
yeah,
mean that it's the same faith that I have.
yeah. So you can't force it onto other people.
There you
That's the
go.
thing.
That's
when
the
I was
problem.
going for when I was going for catechism, my catechist teacher was telling me I must, and also this other guy who lived on property with me, he was Christian, kept telling me, just tell other people all the time, you must believe in God, let's force it onto people. People hate that. That's the
Of
last thing
course.
anyone wants to hear. So
Absolutely.
when you're going up to somebody and say, "Oh, have faith in God," you're trying to like, they're gonna all of a sudden be like, "Hey, go away." They're not gonna want to listen to you. So
Absolutely.
it
And
has
it
the
seems
total
that this connects back as
opposite.
well, interestingly
Mm,
enough, to this view of Tsar. Because you mentioned the
mm,
idea of um, baptism. Baptism is basically the concept, if you will, of being filled with the Holy Spirit, correct? In
yeah,
other words, possessed by the Holy Spirit. Is it any different then to
yeah,
this Tsar belief where their gods, whatever these spirits might be,
yeah.
also possessed you?
Because it's a baby. My mom even said tonight we were talking about it. She said, "Yeah, as a baby, she would have me baptized and obviously promised me to Jesus and God."
There you go. Now, you
So
earlier asked
this is
as well, does it help if you are sick, etc.? Well, here is some interesting connections with Tsar because with the various spirits that can possess you, they say that you can either be inflicted, if they're upset with you, with blindness, arthritis, nightmares, paralysis, etc. But if you do well with them and treat them well,
yeah.
um, they will cure you of all of those things and therefore sort you out, which is fairly important. So,
See, the
and
problem with me, what
y-
I was getting to, sorry. No, carry on, sorry. I don't mean to cut you off
so
there.
in Ethiopia, which is where we are looking at our particular form of witchcraft tonight,
Mm,
these czar can be either positive or negative. Some of
yeah,
the spirits are seen to be um, evil. Some of them, however, are considered to be good, the benevolent ones, or adbar. Um, and these are distinguished. specifically from the negative spirits of the Ganyan or Buddha spirits. Now, of course, remember, Buddha is a specific kind of magic within Ethiopia, and this is where
Yeah.
it deviates from the Egyptian and Sudanese versions to a certain uh, degree, as it were. So the spirits that can therefore ride you, as they call it,
Yeah.
can do so in a good way, or if they are a bad spirit, they can do so in a bad way. And that is very important. And it is also something which affects very much how people see you and view you. So, inasmuch as the Ethiopic Jews are considered to be Buddha, they consider anyone that deals with Za in this way as being just as outcast. So you
Mm.
have a reverse outcasting, as it were, as well. Um, Dankie Bosveld Noilezet. We always appreciate likes. So
Thank you.
you get varying uh, sides to the social argument due to the views of witchcraft. And you see immediately that you get different sides to the story. Some
Yeah.
sides are that witchcraft is absolutely evil, um, and that's all that we care
Yeah,
about.
or for inflicting harm and all that on others and
Correct.
stuff. Yeah.
But other sides say, no, it's not like that at all.
Oh, no,
Um,
it's not.
some are considered, and this is where the other kind of witchcraft happens in Ethiopia, with the Debtera. Now, remember, the Buddha are not part of the Ethiopian Orthodox religion, whereas the Debtera are, and they are ones which use this kind of magic uh, either licitly or legally, if you will, or illicitly or illegally. And the good ones use the legal magic, and the bad ones use the illegal magic. And therefore, this is within the Christian church.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Now, remember, of course, Christianity arrived in Ethiopia not long after it started um, with Jesus. So, around 300 years after
Yeah.
Jesus, it was already in Ethiopia. So, they are among the oldest Christians in the world outside of where Jesus lived and worked.
Yeah.
So they've been going with Christianity for centuries, a lot longer than any other country. I mean, Europe was late to the game in terms of Christianity.
Yeah.
Now, the Debtera are specifically within Ethiopian Christianity, which is a little bit different. Now, to give you an idea, you have the main line of Christianity, which splits up as it goes to different countries. Russian Orthodox Christianity is where it grew up within the Russian viewpoint. And while it is still considered to be properly Christian, so in other words, the rights are valid
Yeah.
in the views of the other major Christian groups. So Catholics going to a Russian Orthodox church are still considered to have gone to church and may take Eucharist there, and it counts.
Yeah.
Okay, and vice versa. Similar with the Greek Orthodox, their church and their Eucharist and all in all are considered valid to both Russian and Catholics. Okay, so it counts. And also the Ethiopian Orthodox. Um, they are also considered valid. So each one of the Orthodox groups all agree, but their specific rites are quite different. If you walk into an Ethiopian Orthodox church,
Yeah.
that it will look very different to what you might see in a Catholic church. The way
Can
they go
I
about things is quite different.
can I disclose something to you before
Yes.
our conversation goes too far? It's really bad to say it, but uh, I have this conversation because I am seriously committing, like, uh, considering committing some sort of suicidal uh, acts. But it's because of my disease I have, and also with my bipolar problems.
That,
So I
okay.
wanted to tell you that it's
Well,
not like I haven't planned anything. I just
I
always
can
think
tell
of
you that my view on these things is comes out from my older brother, who also bipolar, um, and he went off and he did all kinds of things, including large quantities of drugs,
yeah,
and eventually he did, in fact, commit, and so he's gone now. But my view on these things is that in every case I've ever encountered, it's been a sort of a need. Now, I'm trained, by the way, in psychology as well, just so that you know.
oh no problem. Thank you for
Um,
your
it's a need to know that at least one person out there cares.
yeah, yeah.
You don't need much. One is enough. And
That's right.
my only answer to you that I think is worth saying is that yes, you actually do matter. And
Thank
the
you.
fact that you
Yeah,
have a boyfriend shows that you matter to more than one person.
yeah.
It does matter, and that is enough. You don't
He
need more than that.
understands. He understands
There you go.
why
And yes,
why I
it's
talk about it. And the thing is,
absolutely.
I'm open with him about these discussions, like I am with you. You're a very special person, you know that, because you make me feel like I can just say whatever. That's the
I
weirdest
think you
thing.
should be able to.
You
The
you have a gift. You have a gift because
Thank
all of
you
a
for
sudden
that.
I just feel
But
I feel my conversation with you is like
well, I'm glad
it's
I
water
can
water
help.
water water going down a well that was blocked for a very long time.
But
That's all it
at the
is.
end of the day, what matters is that you do matter, and you do. So you
I
shouldn't
appreciate
worry.
that. I
It's
appreciate that what you say.
But bear in mind, it's like a great many things. Just because that you do know, and this is for other people as well who are listening that may not really realize
Yeah.
this,
Yeah.
that just because you know you matter and that you won't go ahead and do it, the fact that sometimes you think about it will occur all the time. It's and the
It does.
nature of the disease. It
I think
happens.
it happens for a lot of people, specifically schizophrenia and bipolar like I have.
Absolutely.
Well,
It's
because
very much.
I'm bipolar borderline schizophrenic, so
And it will
I
always be something that will turn up in your life. But it's a matter not of never having it, it's a matter of
mm,
knowing that it will be there and overcoming it. And that's what matters.
the thing with me is I've had this recurring dream
Okay?
since I was 11 of being possessed by a demon. You know, I went for the extreme fear, the pain, everything that I could possibly imagine that which you could feel if you were possessed by a demon. I mean, I went through that. I was like, and it's like it's such a scary. It's so
Of course.
I'm sorry. I don't make sense coming on here tonight because I sound
That's
very
quite all
flawed.
right. But you are not wrong. One of the biggest problems, and you were saying, is there a limit to be? to being too open minded? And my
Yeah.
answer is no, because knowing more is never bad. It helps us understand, it helps us grow. I
Yeah.
would say that it's not the same as being um, open moraled.
The problem
We
is
sh-
I got so high that one night on cannabis, and I don't know. I know you can get like anxiety, like really bad anxiety from cannabis use, you
you
know?
can, dependent on the
But
strain.
that one night, oh my word, I actually felt like I was so out of myself that I could feel something was just coming into me and taking over completely. Like
Well,
it was the weirdest sensation. Like I don't even know.
to be fair, that also is not surprising. You will, if you've followed through a number of the lives that we've done thus far, you will realize that the use of um, both cannabis and other hallucinogens is specifically done throughout history in order to achieve that exact thing. That
Yeah.
was the point of doing it. So it is often a byproduct of such things.
The
It,
thing is, part of the reason I believe that is because as a child, my mom always said I went to catechism. I was one of the highest progressing pupils in my
mm-hmm,
class. Like
mm-hmm.
very, very open to questions, talking about the Bible with my age, even with my age. So I, as a child, had this reoccurring dream of being possessed because I always felt I was, well, maybe too perceptible to being talked to or influenced.
Well,
That's the thing. Because I was so inquisitive as a child, you know what I'm saying? I don't know.
absolutely.
Maybe it
It's
sounds wrong, but that's the way I felt. And even to this day, I still have recurring dreams when I was a child about things happening in our household. It was necessarily not
Well,
normal
this
anymore.
is something which, in fact, I think that um, has come up on more than one occasion. Endless Thoughts will tell you we've come up with a number of different issues, if you will, both when we did the whole thing on curses, when we did the whole thing on ghosts, and
Mm.
we've established that in terms and it kind of makes sense. In terms of people, different people tend to have different levels of sensitivity to the spiritual. Now,
Yeah,
we know that this is true in physical abilities. Some people are just really good at running. Some
yeah,
people are really good at skateboarding. So, in terms of physical things, human beings naturally have different
yeah.
ability levels from the start. And it seems that it's also true in mental. Some people are just really good at mathematics. Not me, believe me. Um,
So,
you know, different talents. And it makes sense that it's also true that you people have different levels of ability in spiritual things as well. After all, we are made up of the three aspects of body, mind, and soul. That's what makes us human.
I do know I pick up on people's anxiety around me quickly.
Exactly.
Somebody's feeling super anxious around me, my anxiety will reach high.
Absolutely. And you will know that, and we all know people like this. There are certain people that you'll say, you know what, you can literally drop a bomb next to them, they don't even notice in terms of
Yeah,
emotion. Um, they're oblivious to other people's feelings. And some people are so sensitive, they pick up in like
I
seconds. So we have got different levels of ability.
yeah.
And one of the problems, especially with Western society, which I think is a great loss that needs to be addressed, is that we are so focused on the body and the mind that we
Mm.
don't actually train people to manage spiritual things, which means,
Exactly, yeah.
yes, so we don't handle a lot of these things well. We
Because
don't know how
children,
to.
especially children these days, they are so insensitive to anything. Children, like
Absolutely.
mentally, physically, they're like totally,
But
they just don't have any connection to anything spiritually at all.
but you see, the trouble
Yeah,
I find with that is I'm going to argue that you're only half. I know what you are actually saying,
yeah.
but you're only half right, because that spiritual connection is natural. It happens regardless.
Oh,
What we
yeah, yeah.
what we aren't seeing is any teaching or training in terms
Yes,
of it.
yes, I agree with what you're saying. Yes,
So they can't deal with it. It's almost like I've kept you in a dark room your entire life, and suddenly you
now you
walk out
must.
as an adult and there's light everywhere, and you just don't know how to
Yeah.
manage it.
Oh shit.
It
No,
blinds you.
that's what I mean exactly. I understand. That's what I mean.
Yes.
Understand.
So you
Like
you
I have an adopted sister, Talissa. She's adopted. Her, she's such a lovely person. She's young. She's only like 18,
okay.
but I can see she has so much. There's something about her. She's got like there's no. She's one of those type of people who will spend in her room 24/7. She doesn't want to have contact with anyone. She's really just so.
And therein lies the problem, because true emotion and true emotional connection
Yeah,
does come from our spiritual side. It's not a mental logical thing, and
yeah.
it's, or at least shouldn't be, it's not a physical thing.
The other day I took her to hospital. She cut her finger really bad,
Oh, shame.
and it was so bad. Her mom was there by her, but her mom's not very supportive. Emotionally supportive. So I went with, but the thing is, I could see she's just so disconnected from any kind of parental or
But that's the problem.
didn't know where to go. She looked like a cat that was in a cat box when you take her to a vet.
You
Didn't know
see,
where to go.
that
There's no
that's a very good description right there.
yeah.
And that is the problem that we are
Oh,
now seeing in the modern
there was
world.
no that child didn't know who to go to, what to do, where to say, who to say, or it was it was
Absolutely,
horrible to see it like that.
you have a very good point there.
I grabbed her and I hold her tight and I was like, look my life.
Kenny, hey,
It's
welcome, welcome. We have yet another
hello.
guest. How are you
Yes.
doing?
Thank you, sir. It's my pleasure. I'm happy to be part of you.
Oh, welcome.
Welcome, welcome.
Yes.
So, as we are progressing, then, let us move on to the next bit, which is to say that within your Ethiopian Orthodox, which is as we said, a proper and accepted and formally viewed form of Christianity, you nevertheless do have these sort of witches in a way, the Debtera, that are doing things that are not supported by the official Ethiopian church. And they are not the same as the external witches, or the Buddha, or the Zar. And the transgressions that are done, um, they don't necessarily abolish or go outside the boundaries per se, but um, they do violate what ought to be allowed within the proper canonical faith, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so you have your these are the laws and the rules of the church type thing that is official. Um, and I see Oliochisubo.
Hello.
Kenny is from Uganda.
Welcome,
Yeah.
welcome.
Ogambachi.
Yeah, I'm from Uganda. You mean you know some more vernaculars
Ah,
that we
just a,
always speak here in Uganda?
just a little, just a little.
Okay.
Are you Luganda or are you from one of the other areas?
No,
Southwestern is not Luganda, is it?
no, right now I'm in Uganda, southwestern part of Uganda in Kabale district.
Aha, aha. Okay. Now, I will tell you a
Yes.
fascinating thing for all the people on the channel. If you ever want to know who speaks the best English in the world, you will find them from Uganda. The
Yes.
It's a weird thing, but the English in England is awful. And the English in most parts of the world is pretty awful. But in Uganda, the king, Museveni, very
Yes.
wisely, to avoid argument between the different tribes and the different languages, made English the official, and they learn it properly. And their English is beautiful to listen to. So
Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah,
That's
it's
cool.
true.
it is
True.
very true. So we are very glad to have a
Yes.
Ugandan on.
Welcome, welcome.
Yeah, it's my pleasure to once again.
Glad to
Awesome
hear.
stuff. So
Yes.
Kenny, do you have problems with witches in Uganda? And are
Sorry.
witches, do you have problems with witches in Uganda? And are they considered good or bad?
Witches.
Yes.
So those traditional, the traditional doctors.
And now you see right there, you see how the different views matter so much because you've immediately said, do I mean traditional doctors? Because the words
Yeah.
change. What you mean by it changes. And if you're from South Africa, you will know we don't call an Isangoma a witch, though they use magic. So the traditional doctors, like the Isangoma and the Nyanga, are good. But then the bad ones tend to be called witches, like the Abatagati,
Okay. Okay. I
and you get
understand.
differences.
Oh,
Yes.
wow, that's cool.
Yeah, I
So
have got your point.
viewpoints and what society thinks matters just as much as
Yeah.
what.
Even yeah. Even here in Uganda, those people are there.
Aha.
For example, when they are seeing you when you are progressing, like they are seeing you doing good things,
Aha.
they can try to put you down.
You see, and there again, we see exactly what was said in the beginning of the discussion in Ethiopia, that
Mm.
most of the views of witchcraft have to do with jealousy and anger.
That is it.
And there you have the root problem. And that shows across. So, right away from Uganda to Ethiopia to South Africa, there is agreement on that. So,
Mm.
as we progress with these interesting things, we
Yeah.
have to mention briefly as well that in Africa, and this is true of in slightly different ways all over, um, what we can call juju or magic. Okay, so not necessarily good, not necessarily bad, but just in general, um, it is consulted for variety of reasons, including wealth, health, success, political careers, enhancement of fertility, and many other things. And it may be for improving this in a good way or making it bad for somebody else in a bad way. We know that in order to deal with these things, um, you might go to a bad one to get at somebody you want stopped, or you might go to a good one to stop someone else's bad stuff at you. Um, and it might be to stop the spiritual world's attack on you, or it might be to stop even on the physical level. And the major functions, of course, can basically be summarized to say that it is to divine, to detect witches or witchcraft, specifically meaning the bad version, to make charms, to prepare and administer herbal medicines, to heal and eradicate witchcraft, to ritualize bringing good things such as rain and such, and treatments in agriculture, fishing, hunting, or trading. And they are therefore treated, if you are a practitioner, with a mixture of respect, caution, and fear in most societies. And I think that's a very good description. And what's very interesting, now Kenny has made the point quite well that with God, nothing can stop you from success. And that is a good belief to have. But remember that in many of these cultures that we are talking about, which God? And therein lies the
Yeah, yeah,
point.
it's true.
So we are talking ultimately about differences of religious point. And when it comes to the accusations of witchcraft, either it is an accusation of you're not part of the religion that you should have, according to me, or it is a way to get at people more than anything else. Occasionally, however, you do come across people who are specifically
Hello.
hello, I'm back. Sorry about that. I had a bit of a drop there with the connection. I do apologize for that.
It's
Um,
fine. Are you okay?
Yes, I don't know why. Sometimes the internet dips a bit. We've been having trouble, as I was saying much earlier. We went 2 days without, which is why I didn't do live. So there's definitely a bit of an issue that does occur.
Oh,
But we're back, thank goodness. So we have that
yeah.
at least. I'm very pleased to say. Um,
Sorry about that.
All good, all good. So we've got a whole lot of stories with regards the possibility of what the Debteras might actually do. And what's important is that it's particularly religious, unlike your traditional, more Buddha type or
Yeah.
traditional religion. So during Lent, Debteras will tap prayer sticks to keep the rhythm. They are very often musically connected within the church. Dancers and singers and musicians within the church. And there are all kinds of symbols and traditions that come straight off Christianity.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
yes, which is quite interesting. However, where it varies is, as I was saying, the official and proper Orthodox Ethiopian religion is deviated from, uh, where they start using the religio magical skills in ways that are not approved of. Now, we know for many centuries the Catholic Church, I think I'm not an expert, so I can actually be corrected if anyone knows better, that it's true also in the Greek and Russian Orthodox, and I do believe it is so in the Ethiopian Church, that contraception is not allowed.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, this is a standard. So many debteras will distribute contraception to women and perform magic to stop contraceptive functions, but it's not allowed. Um, this also is
But that's the thing.
compounded. Yeah,
In most religions, they don't allow contraception. That's a crazy thing. Not a
correct.
crazy thing because I mean, if you think about it, it's not that crazy because it's
Well,
normal.
I think a lot of it has to do with social views as well, which are changing insofar that, for example, we are now looking at the world and going, hey, we've got a few too many people.
Yeah, yeah,
Whereas when the laws were put in, um, you didn't have that problem. You had the exact opposite problem.
yeah. They were not enough.
So now we
But
also do hear that the Debterras might not only invoke the angels and the saints and what have you, they might also invoke demons and deal
oh
with
yeah,
black magic. So sometimes they are accused of going a lot further in their witchcraft. So traditionally, Debteras will manufacture the Atropaic amulets to protect the wearer from evil spirits, often made from silver. And we know that Ethiopia is well known for its really, really incredible silver craft.
oh
They
yeah.
they are very, very good, and there are a
Oh,
number of silver mines. They've
oh,
been
that's
yes, it is. They've been making silver jewelry, silver items for
okay.
centuries. They are
So if
very good.
if you're being attacked by werewolves, that's supposed to be.
Well, interesting because I wonder if this isn't a connection because while we don't have werewolves in Africa, we do have were hyenas, and the
Oh,
amulets, yes, we do, and the amulets which protect against were hyenas should be made from silver.
yeah, exactly. Same as werewolves.
Exactly. They are also said to protect against the evil eye, Buddha, um,
Uh,
and against Tsar spirits if you happen to be against the Tsar faith. So you've got that. They are also a number of anti magic invocations, prayers, exorcisms, special holy water uses when which different to normal Western practice, they
yeah.
drink holy water
Oh, okay.
as
That's interesting.
a way to purify you from within,
Yeah.
which is part of the whole thing.
Is that
The
why what a lot of Zulu families that I see, they take water from the sea?
Yes,
And
now that is an argument that um, because in traditional African healing, drinking water, especially water from places, is considered to be very important. And
yeah,
we wonder if that isn't the connection across, if you will.
yeah,
Now, we also know that they burn roots, which is also common to a lot of the African things. We don't use the kind of incense from other countries because it doesn't come from here. Uh,
yeah. That's
but we have our own version of incense. But then there are also incantations from the Magic Star book, which may or may not be something um, anyone knows
yeah,
about. It's a form of semi religious grimoire that is particular in Ethiopia.
yeah.
Now,
My
we,
friend,
yeah,
my
go.
friend is actually a Sangoma training,
That's
young
very
girl,
interesting. It's a
and she
hard journey.
yeah, it's very hard. It's very hard for her.
Oh,
She's
yeah.
struggling big
They,
time.
it is
But
serious.
I was very lucky in the sense that her family, I mean, I'm very close to her family. Her father, he died 2 years ago. I was there for the funeral, for the whole ceremony. His mother, I'm very close with them. You know, it's like it's a really interesting. But she obviously doesn't tell me everything that she's going
They are
through.
not allowed to.
But I
And
know she's going through a hell of a lot of tragedy
at
and
a point, and I know this is true, she will be made to walk from wherever she is to another senior Isangoma and to get like a final exam. But
yeah.
on the walk, she will not be permitted to speak to anybody. at
Oh,
all.
wow.
You have to do it in complete silence. You may not speak to anyone. And I've actually seen them quite often because one of the major examiners lived near where I lived in Valley of the Southern Hills. And you would often see they're painted with white clay over their whole body. And
Okay.
they will not look at anyone. They will not speak to anybody. Because if you do,
Exactly.
that's it. You failed. Cheers. Go home.
Oh, shit.
Oh, yeah, no,
Okay.
it's very, very strict.
Yeah, I know she's been saying, she's told me like small portions of the things that she's had to been through, especially since her dad's passed, you know. It was quite a lot
I,
of it. I mean, I felt quite privileged with the fact that her family was so open to me and they embraced me
you
so
were
much.
very, very lucky to be taught
Because
any.
the father, I was very close to him. I cooked for him before he died, and you know. So that was really special. But the thing is, I know she's going through so much. It must be hard for
No,
her. And like you said, she can't tell me everything she's
no,
going
it's
through.
not allowed. I know that for fact.
But she said she's had issues because, her parents or something didn't talk to their ancestors about things that should have been discussed. And
It is a very big deal, and yes, that all
yeah,
has to be dealt with.
and there's sacrifices that have to be done before she can actually even be.
Absolutely. Well, that leads us on to the next bit because we are now talking
Anyway,
about.
sorry, I didn't
No,
mean
no,
to.
no. We are now talking about the amulets. Now, these obviously, because it is connected to Christianity, they may take the form of small scrolls kept in pouches or similar containers made from the skin of a sacrificed goat or lamb, whose blood is used to ritually purify the intended owner. And you will know that this is similar to what is done within the Zulu traditions here as well.
Yeah, cows and
Um,
the goats, all that, yeah.
absolutely. Now, some practices do use astrology, which has been strong in Ethiopia for centuries as well. Um, they may even give you a new start if you've had a particularly bad life and you want to restart your life by getting a new
Oh,
name,
really?
which is quite
Okay.
interesting, and you become a new
That's
person.
very interesting.
And the
That's really
yes, now you were mentioning cannabis earlier. Some debateros will in fact use what, well, the Americans call it Jimson weed. It's a form of datura, which causes hallucinations. So it's a
uh,
plant that, yes, is a hallucinogen. Now, of course, along with this is the always expected uh, cost. And yes, the Debtera will charge a fee for the charms, exorcisms, astrological practice, and so on,
yeah.
but not for the liturgical activities. Interestingly, they will not charge for those. Now,
Oh.
whether this is important, we don't know, but there you go.
Yeah, that's the thing. You wonder for yourself, like, why wouldn't they
It's,
charge for that?
we don't know.
It seems a
So
little bit.
the Diptera's jobs are not only within the realms of the supernatural, they're also very practical. It is their job to put
Yeah.
scarecrows in fields, to shave heads to prevent head lice outbreaks,
Yeah.
and educate children. So
Oh, okay.
there you go. They are an important part of society,
Yeah.
just not
Especially.
when they do the bad stuff. So it's the bad bits that you have to avoid. And
Yeah.
they must therefore also use the traditional practices of confession, fasting, penance, church attendance, and so on to bring people together and bring healing. And the soul father, or Yenafs Abat, is a kind of spirit doctor in a way that will go
Okay.
around and perform many of these services, and they are church people. They are not
Oh,
outside. So all of these happen within the Orthodox Church, not from.
okay.
Yes. So you've got two kinds of witches in the 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 Ethiopian viewpoint of things. Now, amongst other things, there are also other forms that may or may not um, connect. And if you go back to the really old religions that preceded Christianity, you will now start seeing some of the very early animist beliefs, which do still affect even till today. So, underneath the Christianity is a certain amount of animism. Um,
Mm.
and this is what, at least in Oromo, is called wakefana, which is the idea that there is a spiritual connection through everything, kind of like the Hawaiian
Oh, yeah, yeah.
idea of mana. Okay, so it's there. And this means that there are spirits in everything, but also because of the connection, spirits can possess everything. So it can be both good
Yes.
and bad. And that's important to keep in mind. Um,
Yeah.
Now, along with this, you will see that there are a lot of very interesting buildings. And one of the weird things in Ethiopia is that in many cases, they did not build their buildings, they carved them down into the rock. So the buildings are not
Yeah.
made of bricks, they are one single rock carved into an entire building. And
Yeah, that's
some of
crazy.
them are pre Christian, which does matter. Um, so you had a number of different groups, religions, and gods. And within these pagan religions that predate Christianity, um, there was even a specific group that were considered, even by the other pagan groups, as being very bad, who were snake worshippers. Now, that makes things very interesting because you still find around in some of the very, very old buildings in Ethiopia, from the old, especially
Yeah.
around Aksum, um, the engravings of the snakes and the worship of the
Yes. Yeah.
serpent was spread all over, including in the Middle East and more, and even in Persia. And in the descriptions in the Avesta, the sacred book of Persia, they
But
talk.
yeah, the
Say again.
oh, sorry. Oh no, sorry to interfere. But
Um,
here's the thing, like, my sister, for instance, she in her teenage years was a big believer in UFOs,
okay.
Greys. The Greys, the Greys.
Yes, yes.
And then the serpent people, the serpent's a big
That is something
UFO
which
phenomenon.
we have touched on slightly, but we are going to have to come back to when we get to doing our section on
Yeah.
archaeological inconsistencies, which I know Endless Thoughts is waiting
Mm,
breathlessly for, because there are a number of places where we've got things that shouldn't
mm.
exist, that don't make sense, and reptile
Yeah.
people turn up in many of them, which might seem that they are
Yeah.
gods or angels or aliens or something like that. And
Somewhere.
what exactly we haven't yet decided. Um, and we will get to it after we are
But
done
there's
with
been some
witches.
videography, like,
There has.
yeah. No, sorry, I'm not just being too intuitive with this story. I just saw when you mentioned reptiles, I was thinking, hey, my sister used to talk about these freaking aliens.
There's even there was a brilliant video with, I think it's Cardi B, and during one or another of her things at the concerts that she was doing, she turns and looks at the camera and she blinks and her eyes go reptilian. I don't know how real
Oh, they go weird.
I don't know how real the video is,
Yeah.
if it was doctored or whatever. All I'm saying is it was
Yeah,
interesting.
there's been a few. There's been a few freaking videos on the internet about this
Yes, there
singing
have.
thing.
And it's
I've
interesting.
seen it, and you wonder to yourself, what the heck?
And of course, along with that, we now have a whole collection of views and things throughout the world that do, in fact, connect to snakes. And we will, in due time,
But there's
have
a
to
lot
cover
of
it.
discussion. There's a lot of discussion about the greys as well, you know, the greys.
You should have been around when we
And
did Aliens. You would have enjoyed that.
was it? So I'm thinking mainly the greys and the reptilians. Sorry, I haven't been so into it, but like my sister, my adopted sister, she talks a lot about these things to me, and I'm like, hey. And now that I found you, I'm like, hey, you pretty know these things. You're pretty
And of course,
yeah.
Catherine has a good point. That's why Indiana Jones hates snakes. And he might actually be onto something there, Catherine, because
Yeah, maybe. There's a whole thing going
we,
there.
we, right from Babylonian times, snakes are considered in some way to be the bad guy.
Exactly.
And you wonder why.
Exactly.
And we will go
You wonder
into it
why
because
he's
the if you start reading things like the books of uh, the Epic of Gilgamesh, Gilgamesh and Enkidu, and the very early Babylonian mythology, you see immediately where a lot of our viewpoints come from, that have gone through the
yeah.
ages. There's no doubt to it, and there's a reason for our sort of underlying distrust
Yeah,
automatically of
disrespect.
snakes, which may or may not be true or important. I don't know. But we will get to
But
it
there's
in due
something
time.
but I think that's embedded in everyone almost. I don't think there's one person could say they don't feel a little bit weird when they see a snake. Even if you love snakes. The thing, I have no issue with a snake. I love a snake. But with me, I'm still like, if I see a snake, I'm still a little bit.
You
What the
raise a
heck did
very
you?
good point. But with
Yeah.
all of that, we must now conclude our examination and sum up. So, are there witches in Ethiopia? Yes, there are. There are two kinds, and the one kind I would say is far more just a pagan practice. While they might be viewed negatively by society, they are nevertheless just doing a non general religion. However, we see that there are witches actually within the Orthodox religion, which is a very different thing indeed, because they are deliberately going against the Orthodox practice as witches.
Yeah.
So the answer is absolutely yes. Now, do we have to worry about them? Are they dangerous? Well, I suppose the only answer to that is whether or not you believe in the power of magic and what your definition of witchcraft is. Because as we pointed out, you have to believe in curses if you believe in blessings, because they are the same
Yeah,
thing,
exactly.
opposite sides of the coin. Now, Catherine brings up a very important point there. She asks, witches as in paganism? Remember again, it depends on your definition of the words, because in modern wording in English, what paganism means and what a witch is not the same as it has been throughout history. And in fact, a pagan originally would have referred to a worshipper of Mithras. It comes from the old Roman language, where it referred to those who didn't follow the official state religion, which at the time was Christianity, because they lived out in the rural area or the pagus. So if you were a pagan, you were from the rural area, exactly the same as in England when people were called heathens, someone who lived out on the heath and therefore not in the civilized town where people worship the official religion, which is different. Find that what we go carry on.
What I'm saying is, me, as you've gotten to know me from this conversation we've had, and me as a Christian saying, I'm worried that somebody's gonna like have a curse, put a curse on me or something. But then again, would you say I'd be very worried if I didn't believe fully in their religion? So if they wanted to curse me, they said, I'm gonna curse you with this, and I said I didn't really believe in what they were saying. Do you think I would have been affected by their curse?
Well, arguably, and as a Christian, I'm going to give you the biblical answer because there are several answers dependent on your faith. But as a Christian, the answer is on the one hand, yes. We know that in the Bible, curses and more are considered to be real and powerful from other places. However, in response to that, the Christian answer would be the God you follow is more powerful, and therefore, by your faith in there, you may get protection and much more,
but not complete
through God.
immunity.
Well, you would go to church and get your blessing, and it would protect you.
Yeah, exactly.
So, in that regard, are they real? Yes. Speaking from a Christian perspective, but are you protected? Also, yes.
But
Which
if
is the
somebody from a
point.
different religion, Hindu or some other religion, if they were to say, I'll curse you with this, and I was say, I believe in God, I am a Christian.
Well, again,
they want to curse me.
Does the curse come directly from their faith or from their malevolence towards you? That's also
But if you don't believe,
arguable.
but the thing is, you don't have fear of their religion. Then the curse shouldn't affect you, though. Is that right?
It does
if they say,
depend. When we did our whole section on curses, we absolutely did encounter the fact that your being afraid of it does make a big difference.
yeah.
Okay,
But
so
if you're not,
yes.
if you say I don't believe this is a thing, and they put this curse on you, you won't feel anything towards that curse.
Well, not if at the same time you are continuously faithful and do all the required religious practices that your religion requires of you. So, regular attendance of church, praying, getting blessings, the use of holy water or holy objects as is appropriate. That is the point of all of that. It clothes you in the power of your God to protect you, which is kind of the point.
Yeah. Okay, no, that's wonderful. Thank you so much.
That's an absolute
I
pleasure.
appreciate that.
So, yes.
That's the answer I was seeking.
I'm glad to hear that. So, are there things in Ethiopia? Yes, there are. And some of them are even within the church, which is quite fascinating. But with that, I'm going to say to you all that we have done with Ethiopia. Does anybody have any particular country or culture that we haven't done that you would like to see done next? That would be a good question because there are many around. I do have a few ideas that I would like to get to, but it all depends on you. Do give me an answer if you feel there's somewhere we should do next in that
Maybe
regard.
Egypt.
You want to
How
do
would Egypt
Egypt?
do?
Well, there's a lot to
That'd
be
be
said.
interesting. I don't
Egypt has
know.
a number of things in that regard, just as they
Yes,
had quite a lot of curses as well, as we
Egypt,
know.
because what recently there was a lady talking on TikTok. She took her family for a holiday there. She said the experience was terrible.
Well,
She didn't want to go. She didn't want to go into it. She said she was there with her husband and two children. First of all, the people were trying to take advantage of her big time.
that is a big
Like,
problem there. I know
but
people who have
now,
been there, so yes.
yeah. But now I was wondering what she was struggling with,
Well,
otherwise.
I can tell you from when my brother went there, and he said to me, the two things that are bad about Egypt is that number one, the beggars. And
Oh, okay.
most of them are thieves, which is quite a problem. And number two is you think you know what hot is, and you are wrong.
Oh, it's like crazy.
So, when somebody who was born and raised in Africa says it's really
It's so
unbearably
hot.
hot, then you got to know that it's
Yeah,
bad. So there is that.
yeah.
But
She was there with
Egypt,
her two little ones and the husband.
oh yeah, I
And she
know.
just said things were terrible. She booked the trip for 2 weeks. She just stayed 4 days left. She was
Well,
not happy.
I can also tell you that the good bits are unbelievably good. Uh, so it does make it
Yeah, I mean,
worthwhile.
yeah. So maybe if you want to talk about that sometime, that would be interesting to
Well,
hear.
then, failing anybody else giving opinions in that regard, um,
Yeah.
Egypt it shall be, and it will be tomorrow night. I am going to tell you,
Awesome.
however, this. Those of you who don't know, I have a second channel where I do discuss with a different group of people survival things. And I'm
Oh,
very
okay.
much thinking that I'm going to be starting to do late night lives on survival as well, which means one, maybe two of the day. I'm thinking only one might be given over to that channel for those things in the future. I haven't decided
Okay.
exactly when. So that will be going on um, as we progress. So we will lose one night for this channel to that. But that said, remember, like,
Okay.
share, subscribe, do all of the good things that keep the channel going.
Okay.
And with that, I
Thank
think
you.
it's an absolute pleasure. I'm going to say goodnight to you all
Good
and end this
night. No.
this live. And remember, of course, everybody, um, that sleep well, sleep deep, and sleep sweet, but sleep with one eye open because you never know. There
Oh
are
yeah, I'll tell
things
you.
out there that go bump in the night, and if you are
Big
not
time, yeah.
careful, they might go bump for you.